There's a cookie up here on the floor. This is truly a floor cookie at this point. It's kind of smushed and broken up. So, when I got started with the Dreamers podcast, it wasn't for me to necessarily inspire other people, but for me to learn what I wanted to do with my life, because I didn't know what I wanted to do for the most part. So, it's incredible that the show has inspired other people, but it's really inspired me to push harder and do more things and be more bold and do things that I didn't think I would necessarily try to do. So I'm very grateful not even just for y'all to be here, but for everybody who listened and believed and understood, like, there was more to it than me trying to just inspire other people to do things, because it really wasn't. That's not how it started. It started with me trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and interviewing people that had like these awesome stories of things that they do, and it's really inspired me to take it 3 years later to a whole nother level. And one of the people that really has inspired me, and apparently I've inspired her over the years, is Lorie Foster. So give it up for Lorie. Come on up, Lorie. There you go.
Thank you.
So Lorie, I don't remember. I think I met you because of the Human Project.
Yeah.
I saw that you had a GoFundMe for a new wheelchair, and I was like, I should reach out to this person, because we should utilize the Power of the Dreamers podcast to raise money for a really good cause, right? And but I didn't want to just like do it in a way where it's like, like we do it for Give Kids the World once a year, and it's awesome, and you should totally do it. And it's not I'm pointing to a screen that's off. But go to superjoepardo.com/donate. And but I wanted to and I did a couple of them episodes where we raised money for people who really needed it at the time in which they needed it. Unfortunately, I think we've only done it 2 or 3 times over the course of 3 years, so not enough times. I need to do a better job at it because I'd like to continue doing it. And Lorie was the first one that I ever reached out and did it for. And I think, just to go to show you not the power of what Joe has built, but the message is more important, right? So what happened was I think we raised maybe a couple $100 or something because of the show and the network towards the wheelchair that she desperately needed. But her church found out about the show and raised, was it like $1,800?
Yeah, 18.
They raised $1,800 at her church because they found out about the podcast and were able to listen to this story and the power of that brought to all of it, right? And it floored me because I'm like, this is not what I was expecting. I was hopeful that we could raise a few $100s and maybe more, but you never know. It just depends on how big your reach is. But sometimes it's not about quantity, it's quality. And so Lorie, I'm gonna shut up because I've been speaking too long. But I want you to briefly tell your story, and then we can get into the follow up because it's been like we did a follow up 2 years ago at the first anniversary of the show, and it's been 2 years since then. So we can pick it up from there. So tell us up to that point briefly.
Okay. And I'm not even sure you know it all, but so when we met, I had been in a wheelchair. I'd had an accident. I had fractured my spine in a few places, and I was in one of the real basic hospital wheelchairs, and it was very difficult. And for a while there, my son was living with me. He was my caretaker. And I had a service dog, and I had aides that helped me. But when my son got married and moved away, I was trying to fend for myself, which was great, except I found myself stuck many places, and the worst one was I tried taking the metro train, and my chair got halfway up on the lip of the train, and the back wheels didn't, and the doors shut, and the train started to go, and it scared the daylights out of me. And I went back to my home, and I didn't leave. I didn't have the courage at the time to trust that my chair and my strength would get me back home from wherever I was going. So I just started isolating myself, which led me to listening to podcasters and getting on the computer, things I could do at home, volunteering with the Human Project, which is where we met. But when you first reached out to me about helping me to raise money for the chair, you didn't realize that I had been isolating myself in my home for so long. And I was hiding that from so many people, from my family, from friends. I had left my church because I didn't want to get out to go to church. And you have inspired me to make that jump and to get back into life. And when we did that podcast, we both thought it was to help raise money for the chair. I wanted this new chair. I thought if I got a chair that was made for my specifics, what my body and what I needed it for, I could get out and I could be safe. But it was going to cost close to $5,000. So for over a year, I had picked it out. I knew the company I was getting it from. I kept talking about this chair. And my son finally made a GoFundMe account, which I didn't know about at first, to try and raise the money because he knew I'd never do it myself. That got your attention. You did the podcast, which as far as the wheelchair goes, then we all shared the podcast. My church heard about it. They ended up purchasing the chair mainly for me after that. But what was more important, your last question in that podcast was, being that it was a Dreamers podcast, he asked me what my dreams were growing up and if I had accomplished them. And I was in such a depression. It was such a dark time in my life. I couldn't think of any memories of any dreams I'd ever had, even as a kid. And I didn't want to dream because I didn't think they would come true, so why put myself out there? But that question and not being able to answer it on the podcast haunted me for months. And you and I started talking, and I started, listening more to your podcasts and everything. And I got to the point where I wanted to dream. I was so just taken back by the thought that I hadn't had dreams, or I couldn't remember one. And as we started talking, and we were doing a bunch of Skypes, so I see your office and things, and I saw the medals on your wall, and I saw something with the Give Kids the World. The logo was on something, maybe a certificate or something. Oh, yeah. And that was a huge part of my life because I had a daughter that went through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we stayed at Give Kids the World. And I thought the only people that would know about that would be if you lived in Florida or if you had a child that was sent there. How in the world do you know about this charity? It just got us connecting and talking. And you told me about all your races, and I thought, that's my dream. I want to be able to do a race. And it would be in my chair. And I would probably start with a 1K or something. I was so out of shape. Back then, I was about close to 100 pounds, 90-some pounds heavier than I am now. And at your 1-year reunion, I made the announcement that I was going to do my first race. And you have inspired me. I did the Spartan race It's not too long after that.
I mean, that's a testament to you don't know what you're going to accomplish when you set out to do something, because you don't necessarily know what you're doing when you do it. But you might have the skill set where you bring the skill set to the table that you do have. And I mean, I'm so thankful that I've gotten to meet you and your story, and I'm glad that I was able to inspire you. But the thing is it's not just me that inspired you. It's like a lot of these people in this room have inspired you. The guests. I mean, my show is about the guests. It's not really about me. And I mean, even this conference isn't really about me. I'm up here, but I'm not one of the speakers here. You know, I just like bringing people together and inspiring people through other stories and all that. And so I'm so glad that you found it and that you found me and these people that are here. So since then you've done a couple of races.
Actually, that was the one.
That was the first one.
And the next one will be this September.
Oh, okay. So I thought you had done at least two, because I thought you had one like sort of with the chair, and then one where you're. And I have the picture.
No,
but it's on my computer.
The picture you're talking about with me climbing the wall.
Yes.
Without the chair. That was a Spartan race, and we went with me in the chair with John and a number of other people, thinking most of it would be in the chair. We'd never done a race before. None of us had, so we didn't know what we were getting into. And figured they would help me out of the chair for the times that we couldn't use the chair. Come to find out, we couldn't use the chair at all.
Really?
So somebody carried it, folded it up, carried it the 5 miles. And two other people held me literally arm in arm the whole 5 miles. And when we got to that wall that I climbed,
let me get so talk about from the time in which you met John.
John, I found John on Facebook originally. Originally, my doctors had said my muscles were wasting because I wasn't using them, and I needed to do something. And I started looking for a personal trainer that would come to my house because I wasn't leaving my house. And it didn't work out. I interviewed 3 people, and for different reasons, it didn't work out. And so I kind of gave up, thinking it's not for me. Personal training is not going to be the answer. And I just got used to this is how my legs are going to be. And then a few months later, my son calls and says, he and his wife are starting to talk about having their first child, and they want to know how involved the parents were going to be able to be. I realized I've been begging for a grandchild for years, and I'll be able to sit in my chair and be handed a child. And I can't get on the floor. I can't bend over a crib. And so I thought, I've got to try one more time. And I found John's ad on Facebook. I clicked it, and just the way our paths crossed, it's just a whole nother story. But we did connect, and I sat down for an intake with him, and he has everyone write out 3 goals about what you want, and I could come up with 2. And he says, "Why wouldn't you want one of your goals to be to get out of that chair?" And I said, "Because I want it to be realistic, something that I can do." And the doctors say that's not going to happen. So he takes the paper from me and he just writes it out for himself. Get out of the chair. And asked me if he promised if he got me out of the chair and back in the chair, if I would try some things on the floor. I did. My body didn't move off the floor. I tried lifting my legs. I tried bridging. I tried all these things. Nothing moved. But he convinced me that even though my body wasn't moving, my muscles were contracting, and my body would one day move. I signed up that day for 3 months, paid in full in advance, and said, get my legs strengthened. That's all I cared about. I didn't care that I was in the wheelchair. I was used to the chair. That was my life, and that was okay. Just get my legs straight. I'm strong. And within 5 months, he had me out of my chair, walking, doing a Spartan race with me. And that race changed my life. That race showed me that I could do so much more than I ever gave myself credit for. You had told me over and over again, it was all mindset, that I just had to change the way I thought about what I could and couldn't do, or stop thinking about what I couldn't do. But I didn't believe any of it. And going through that race, even though I was held up the whole time, I look back at that and every challenge you have given me since then, and my first thought is, no, I can't do that. I think, I did that Spartan race. I can do anything. And a year and a half later, I am walking. I don't even want to go home because there's so much life to live. Life is good. Life is great. And I don't know what I was doing, stuck in that house. I have overcome so many fears. Isolating myself like I did, I just was everything was inward, and I became afraid of every aspect of life. Stepping out and having to come to the gym, and even though we started one-on-one because I refused to work out with other people because I couldn't even make eye contact, much less make a sentence to other people. You found all these ways to get me out of that gym and into life again. Yeah, it's all mindset. I know. I just had to do it. And Joe, I was telling you earlier about that cookie game. Okay,
yeah,
so your first year, I refused to do any of the games because of the fear of what I would look like, the fear of looking silly or failing, and all of these negative things I had going on in my mind. And I sat there and watched you all play the games, and I cheered you on, and I'm thinking, I wish I had that courage, because that looks like they're having fun, and I'm sitting over here cheering them on because I'm afraid of what I'm going to look like. 2 years later, I don't care what I look like. I want to have fun. So, what you said about the different people, your different guests, and it goes with all podcasters, really. You can become so connected to so many different people. And I've met a number of people who have been just such a huge part of my journey. And it's all because of listening to one or two podcasts here and there, and you guys have all connected me. And I know last night we were talking, and I was saying that 2 or 3 of my main friends who have got me through this journey, I needed you all when you came into my life at that moment. I needed it in the order that it happened. You came into my life when I needed to learn to dream and to learn it's okay to have fun. And then I needed you after that to get me strong again and get me walking. And
I'm not the workout guy. I mean, I work out, but not the workout guy.
But
not like John.
But I have met so many podcasters and people, other guests of the different podcasts who I've connected with, and I'm still friends with, and we still connect and do things and talk. And so, yeah, podcasting is really powerful. You thought you were raising money for a wheelchair. It's so much more than that.
Hey, you never know what you're doing, and when you're doing it, and it's hindsight's 2020. So I'm so grateful for you and for you to be here, and grateful for John for helping take her to the next level. I don't know if anybody noticed that this picture came up, but this picture this happened. Like, this is a thing that happened. So yeah, I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much, Lorie.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.